Hey, it's Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio, welcoming you to another edition of People of Distinction. The talk that gives an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. Run to our website, peopleofdistinction.org for more info, or you can email me directly at benji@alcoleenterprises.com. And on the line with us today, we have B.A. Vonsik. You guys may remember him. He actually did a previous show with my father, Al Cole, here on the line, so we're delighted to have him back on, this time to discuss another book in the series. Today, we're going to be discussing Primeval Origins, Light of Honor. Available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or if you guys want to get everything that B.A. has to offer, do yourself a favor. Go directly to his personal website, primevalorigins.com. There, not only will you find more information on B.A. himself, you'll find a blog that he has on there filled with information that he did on his research for all of his books, as well as be able to purchase the books directly through the site. There'll be hyperlinks set up to take you to the Amazon pages. So one more time, that's primevalorigins.com. And I will say, B.A. was brought to our network, People of Distinction, today by some of the best movers in the business. Author, Reputation Press Publishing. So if you have a book that you'd like moved, move it to ARP. You can find them at authorreputationpress.com. And guys, it is an absolute pleasure to have B.A. here on the line. As I stated, he's a returning author. The interview that we initially had done was so good, we had to invite him back. And as I stated, this is a series of books, okay? So there's a collection. There's a lot that we're going to be able to discuss today. The first time he was here on our network, we discussed Primeval Origins, Paths of Anguish. Now we're going to discuss the second book in the series, Light of Honor. And what I love so much about it, guys, listen, remember, this is a fictional narrative, okay? It's jam-packed, action-packed journey that we're going to be able to take. But one of the underlying messages, one of the underlying themes that I love so much and that B.A. is going to be able to discuss in his own words is how the book is really a reflection on humanity. I love that, right? Something that is hidden beneath the surface where once you really start to analyze, you stop and you examine it, you really see that it revolves around spirituality, right? And how the spirituality, our human nature really changes and develops based upon decisions that we make during our path. Sometimes it's not so simple as just good versus evil, right? There's decisions that we make along our journeys that influence what we become. And that, I think, is so profound. I am absolutely looking forward to this, as I'm sure all of you are as well. And listen, B.A. wrote the book, okay? He's done the research. He's going to be able to articulate all the nuances in his book much better than I ever could. So without further ado, let's bring him here with us. B.A., first and foremost, thank you so much for, again, being a guest with us today on People of Distinction. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me today.
Absolutely. Listen, we're very much looking forward to this. I know we have so much to discuss. So let's jump right in. Let's hold off from the book slightly for our listening audience that wasn't able to hear the initial interview, B.A. Let's start with, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Well, I'm a ex-military graduate from the United States Air Force Academy. I was an aviator for a number of years. And from there, I went into industry, defense industry, and I have been, since my earliest days, associated with the military when I was at the Air Force Academy. I started researching mythology, and that's maintained for 30 years, and much of what's in the Primeval Origins story. As well as that, I'm an engineer in the defense industry right now, one of the principal engineers and one of the major contractors. So I have an extensive background with engineering and sciences.
Listen, B.A., I know we have a number of books to discuss, but once we're done with the series, we're going to have to invite you back on again just to discuss your background. Very impressive. Thank you for everything that you've done for our country and continue to do. It's absolutely amazing. Now, of course, absolutely. Let's jump right in. Primeval Origins, Light of Honor. Tell us a little bit about your book.
Okay, the overall story, for those who didn't go with get to hear the first interview, Primeval Origins is a series. It's an epic fantasy or science fantasy adventure chronicling mankind's time on Earth, from its origins, from what is called first man civilization, to our not so distant future, the fifth civilization of mankind. The story begins with a young paleoarchaeologist by the name of Nikki, who is totally oblivious and innocent of what's about to happen to her. She has an accident in a dino dig and becomes entwined with the four horsemen of Revelations. And as they rise in prophecy in her present, she's also reliving their experiences from the first civilization. So Book 2, Light of Honor, picks up in a story where Nikki and a small group of her companions from the dig are on the run from forces unknown. And they have two of the horsemen with them, not revived, but they become revived during this, I will say, escape from forces that do not want them to succeed. And they end up in a high-tech battle with cybernetic super soldiers, lots of high-tech gadgetry of the future. And Nikki becomes injured in the battle, and this is where she begins reliving the exploits of the horsemen from their ancient story. And the ancient story is based upon our creation myths from Sumeria, Babylonian, Egyptian, and Hindu's mythologies. It's all wrapped up together.
Next concept that I'd love to get into, B.A., let's talk about the title. So Primeval Origins, after hearing your description, we can easily assume and connect the dots as to why that is a perfect representation for your book and for the series. Now, the subtitle, Light of Honor, without giving too much away, why did you choose that particular subtitle to be the representation for this book?
Well, where the horsemen were in the ancient story, it's about the transition from young adulthood to adulthood, and the decisions that are being made by those individuals as they experience the world, and determining whether or not they're going to be good or not so good souls.
There you have it. Now, B.A., curiosity for myself, after hearing your background description, you come from a military background, so I'm very curious. Let's go into the concept of inspiration now. Now, this is going to be a multi-part question. First and foremost, what inspired you to transition from the military background into a creative career path of this magnitude and become a writer?
Well, from the military side of it, I was flying MC-130s as an electronic warfare officer. I had an accident that then made me not eligible to fly any longer. And medically, I was separated from the Air Force, and that's when I entered into the defense industry.
What inspired you to create the series of books that we now have in Primeval Origins?
Well, this goes all the way back to about 1981, 82. My friends at the Air Force Academy, it's a real pressure cooker of a place. And so you try to remove yourself, at least mentally, from the place at times. And what we did is we played Dungeons and Dragons. And while we were doing that, there's this one book called The Deities and Demigods. And we're starting to go through that. And what captured me is that how many mythos, the different pantheons, all speak the same story. Different names, different gods, different creatures, and the rest. But essentially, they all speak the same story, which is creation to some point in the future with a prophetic return. Mm-hmm. And that started me on literally a 30, 40-year quest to go and read everything I could on the ancient mythologies, and that led me to human origins and researching human origins that cover essentially about the last 450,000 years or so. Fantastic. That's what was the inspiration.
Wonderful. Guys, again, here in the line with B.A. Vonsik. We're discussing his book, Primeval Origins, Light of Honor, available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or directly through his personal site, primevalorigins.com. Now, B.A., following off of that, so listen, we know what inspired you. We know about the book. We know about the title. The last question of inspiration, because we know why you wanted to go and embark upon this journey for yourself. Now, what were you wanting people to take from this book? Why was it important for you to put it out for the public to be able to partake in as well?
Well, this gets to what I believe the ancients understood, and that is that we are spiritual beings, and that we're experiencing this world through our bodies, which are, we can call it maturation vessels. And that this is just part of the journey, and human origins unto itself is something that is in a lot of corners of the professional archaeology and scientific worlds is forbidden to speak of.
Absolutely.
And as I was learning more and more of the forbidden archaeology and the forbidden histories, found that a lot of it was not really covered the way that I understand it now in our schools. And the spiritual side of this is that all sorts of terrible things can happen, but regardless of what's going on around you, where you start in life, whether it's with a silver spoon in your mouth or, absolutely dirt poor, dirt for the floor of your house, anybody can become anything that they want. And when it comes down to the decisions that you make, are you going to make a decision this moment, this day, this hour, this minute, in a way that is going to respect others? Or is it going to be something that is filling in a selfish nature? So essentially it comes down to the difference between whether or not you are a selfless or a selfish individual that determines much of what your life is going to be. And I even find that in my daily dealings as an engineer, leader, within these communities, I look for people who have selfless natures, because I generally find almost to a T that once I introduce some person into the mix who has the selfish nature, the selfless ones fall apart.
I love that, B.A. Guys, listen, what he's talking about here, and this is a message that we love to discuss here at People of Distinction. We constantly are talking about our human family and connecting our human family that way. And that selfless nature that he is talking about, I think, is such a profound message that can be found within the book. Again, remember, it's a fictional narrative. But when you really start to go below the surface, you really start to analyze the message that is being portrayed. It is so educational. It is so impactful. It is so powerful that we have to then apply it to our day-to-day lives. That experience, that education that we're going to receive is second to none. I absolutely love that. That is such a great, great message. I've held off long enough, B.A. I know you've already started to go into it in certain instances during this interview, but please articulate for our listening audience, what type of research did you do in preparation for all of these books?
There's two stories simultaneously being told in stories. In the prologues and the epilogues is the near future story. And then in the meat of the book, it is the ancient story where we're introducing the four horsemen and everything that they experience within the creation myths of the various pantheons and cultures. That's where these two tie together, because the characters, the four horsemen, do come forward as we are, I would call it, pre-tribulation for the last four books of the series, which will be the tribulation period. But the first set of books will be about building up to that and giving reason and cause and insight into the thoughts and characters of the four horsemen. we would all think that they are all evil beings. But when it comes down to how the Bible and Revelation describes them, they're essentially on task. And the task was given to them from God and Christ. And they're doing what's needed to be done because at that particular point in time in tribulations, there is evil in the world. And when you go and start taking a look at human origins, there is an ancient alien element that's very significant to the human origin story in modern times. And there are certain statements made by Christ that can be very easily interpreted as there's more than one flock of sheep for him to bring along during the tribulation period. And that's much of what the story is about.
Fantastic. So it's a very creative interpretation of really age-old stories that we are all familiar. Well, anybody that comes from a religious background that is familiar with the Bible will have heard, right? And even people that don't know the intricacies of it, they've heard of the four horsemen. I mean, that is a very common story that is told. So it's a very creative interpretation in which you decided to take it from. That is fantastic. Now, B.A., I know that you've received awards for your books. Articulate to our listening audience. Tell us about some of the awards that you've received and some of the accolades that you've been able to accumulate.
Well, the series in total, 3 books that are currently published, have won 32 awards from the indie community. That's Reader's View, Reader's Favorite, New York Big Book, and just a slew of others. And the first time I submitted the book was literally a couple months after I submitted book 1 or published book 1. And it was to Reader's Favorites. And I got a 5-star review, but I got I will call it a personal editorial back review from the reviewer. And he said, not good enough to go on for the contest, but it is 5-star. Here are the things I saw. So I went back, I looked at what he said. I took the book off the market it ended up being about a month, and I corrected those things and republished. And since then, things have been going really well. Book 1 won 6 awards. Book 2, Light of Honor, won 10 awards, and book 3 so far has won 16.
What more can we say? These books need to be on everybody's shelves, okay? The story is absolutely incredible. The underlying messages, the education you're going to be able to receive, and just the journey that you're going to take. I mean, what a wonderful, wonderful journey. You know, B.A., last couple of questions as we tie up this magnificent interview. I'm curious, what would you say was a highlight for you in writing these books? Or if not a highlight, maybe something that surprised you that you weren't expecting prior to embarking upon the journey?
The thing that surprises me in every single book is as I'm writing them, I'm giving reason and rationale for why somebody thinks what they think and do what they do. Mm-hmm. And the characters always surprise me. They end up going in generally the direction I was setting out the book for, but they take the side turns, the side pass decisions that they make, which then has a major impact on the story.
Being an artist myself, and I'm in a different medium, but I love having the platform to be able to reach out and almost pay it forward, in a sense, to other artists that are out there. Now, you've said it yourself multiple times, and we've just discussed all of the accolades that you've received for your books. You've written 3, completed already, and have been published. There are more to come. What advice could you give a new writer, somebody just starting out?
Understand what it is that you want to write and find a voice for how you write. I'm a little unorthodox. If you get the grammar teacher from school, sometimes they will cringe their teeth. But I write everything from the standpoint of the individual perspective. And I put grammar in to pause because they're thinking, hesitation. Other elements that I do is that if the action's picking up, the sentences get shorter, they get quicker. If it's more thought-provoking dialogue and the rest, it'll get a little longer. So I change up the actual tempo of the writing to match the essence of what is being told. It took me a long time to figure that out. Even as I was reading other books like the Wheel of Time, Conan, Elric, you name the series, it didn't dawn on me what some of the authors were doing. And when I went back and I analyzed that, and it just hit me in the face that they were doing the same things. And so I mimicked that, and I mimicked the way to tell the story as if I was writing scenes for a movie.
There you have it. Listen, everybody has their own voice. Everybody has their own style. It's up to you to find yours. Guys, again, listen, I know you're listening in right now, and you're already at his Amazon page. You're already at the Barnes & Noble page. You've already gone to primevalorigins.com. You're looking at the blog and really analyzing which book you're going to buy first. But just to re-impress it one last time, we are here on the line with B.A. Vonsik. We just finished discussing his fantastic book, Primeval Origins, Light of Honor. Now again, remember, there's a series of books. So the first book in the series is Primeval Origins, Paths of Anguish. Then we have Primeval Origins, Light of Honor. And then lastly, Primeval Origins, Rise of Serpents. Those are the ones that are available right now. But guys, again, be on the lookout. There are more to come. BA has a lot in store. We're looking forward to taking that journey, and you should be too. Make sure that this is a book that you have on your shelf. It's a fantastic gift for anybody else. The education, as I've said before, is second to none. Do yourself a favor. Head on over and pick up your copies. BA, this has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much again for being a guest with us on People of Distinction.
Thank you, Benji, for having me on, and you take care of yourself.